Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know that we're right at the early stages of building this enormous Jagdpanther, the 1:6 scale kit from Armortek. This is the tank destroyer, the G2, the later version, and it's overwhelmingly huge, and I'm really loving every single part of this build. If you've just joined me, welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and if you're new, please subscribe because we are literally at the very early stage. I think this is the 4th session in the build series, and we've got a long way to go. And in today's session it's going to be about assembling and installing the first and second bump stops, and then I'm going to go on and start looking at the suspension arms and the axles. I'm going to show you my method of how I get the angle just as Armortek recommend. So what I'm going to do now, as I normally do, is I'll reposition the camera, we'll get close into assembling these bump stops, and then we'll get them onto the side of the hull and we'll continue talking about this build. So I'll do that and I'll be straight back. Okay, so we have to assemble 2 of these identical, and just before I start working on them, I just want to give these a bit of a wipe over, just to get rid of the excess or the residue from the cutting compound, because obviously I want to make sure that when I do eventually get some paint on, or primer and paint on these, it sticks correctly or adheres correctly to the metalwork, and sometimes this compound can hinder that. Now I'm going to, before I install, I mean we'll assemble these, but before I install these on the hull, I'll give the hull a bit of a wipe over and a light sanding, and then wipe it again, just prepping it for painting, and then we'll go on and install these. Now there is I was looking at the instructions, and this is the instruction for the assembly, really straightforward. You have one of these 25mm M4 button fixings here, or butt fixings, which has got a washer on the end of it. I can just pick that up, and then we install 6 of these rubber spacers. Just like that. You don't glue these, you just put them on. So that's what you end up with, that. And then this passes through the underside of that, through the hole, and then you just spin a nut on, which is gonna, I will put some thread locker on this before I wind it all the way in. So that's effectively that. But I mean there's 2 of these, 2 to go in diagonally here and here. The drawing is not that clear, but you can just about make out the suggestion of another one here. So if you're doing one of these, from what I can see, you do need to put 2 of these in. So let's now get some thread locker on that, and we can tighten that up. It does call for you to Loctite the nut on, but I guess I'm just going to put a large degree of thread locker on it, hold that nut and just wind it in from underneath. Wipe off the excess. Get a little tool in there just to get around to the bits that I can't get to. Just want to make sure that this will fit in, and it does. Like so, that just gets glued in. It says quite clearly here, Loctite in place. And do exactly the same thing again. And again, you know what? Finding these parts is so much easier now, that the way that Armortek have itemized them and listed them out. You know exactly where to look. It's made the search for the parts and components so much easier. So that's 6 of those on there, washer on, pass through from underneath, thread locker in place, nut on, nut will go on, nut does not want to go on. Come on. That's it. going to hold that from there and then tighten it up from underneath. Just holding that nut to stop it from spinning. And that's that. Wipe off the excess. And then the only thing left to do with this is just to literally glue this into position here, like that. Guess it's just got to make sure it's equidistant, like so. So we'll do that. I'm going to use super glue for this. Slide that into position. Got a few seconds to work the glue, and that's it. Done. So I'll do the other one off camera, and then we'll come back and do the second bump stops. So they're both done, the first bump stops. Now we're on to the appropriately named second bump stop. So one thing of note here, let's get these out of the bag first. Let's get these out, all 4 of those. There's 4 of these to be made, all identical. And again, I'm just going to give these a bit of a wipe over while I can. And the thing of note is you have got on here, you can see on this diagram here, you've got the fixing hole here. You'll need to put the 2 of the hex screws through, maybe even all 3 through here, because once you've got the stack on, you're not going to be able to get to them, so must not forget to do that. Again, what I'll do is I'll do one of these in real time, and then I'll do the rest off camera, because that'll just be extremely tedious for you to watch. So they're all done. I'm just going to check forward and see. I think it does say inset 2 M3 hex. Okay, to the whole side. Yeah, I think that's the case. Before we'll do that, so I'm going to pop 2 of those in there. I'm guessing it's the 2 flanking ones like that. Then we've got a spacer, M4 washer, sorry. Again, we've got M4 25mm butt fixings. This time you just need a stack of 5 of these spacers. That goes through there. And then, as before, just put a dab of thread locker on that. Nut goes in. Hold that. Make sure that doesn't fall out, the hex fixing. Just hold that while I tighten that up. And let's see if it just says inset 2, so I'm guessing it's the left and the right hand side, because you may be able to get through the middle for the other one. So another stack of 5 spacers on here. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to stack them. Keep that hex screw down there, pop that into position there, thread locker on. Just hold that while I tighten that up from underneath. That's that. You can see why. Look, because you've got these fixings now, you can pass these through the hole. These 2 fixings here, you would not be able to get to them, but you can actually get to the middle one. I don't know if you can see that. This middle one here you can actually get to, so that makes sense. So there's a really helpful note on the instructions that makes that quite clear. So that's that. I'll go on now and I'll do the other 3, and then we'll come back and start looking at putting them onto the side of the hull. So that's all the bump stops done. First bump stop, second bump stops. 4 of these, 2 of these. Now we're going to have to go and install these little plugs and the track pin deflector onto the hull. So I'm going to get the hull, I'm going to go and burst the hernia by lifting the hull back onto my workbench, and we can get all these installed. Okay, so ahead of me installing the bump stops and a few other accessories that need to go onto the side of the hull, while we've got the hull relatively easy to get to with nothing in the way, it's time to just give this a bit of a light. I'm just using a very light sandpaper just to get that surface a little bit smoother. Obviously if we put all the bump stops on, you're not going to be able to do this as freely as this. I used to get my sanding machine out on this, but actually you don't need to do it. Just need to have a really nice little soft rub down, and then we'll give that a wipe over. You can see what's coming off of it. That's why you need to do this before you prime and paint. So we're not going to be doing that just yet, but it just gets you ready. I have actually done the back plate. I did that. I meant to tell you that in the last series or the last episode, but I have actually already done this to the back plate and the front plate. But now we'll just come around and do exactly the same on this side. It just makes life a lot easier when we come to prime and paint. And the bottom of the hull and the underside of the hull will be painted before I put too much more on this. So I need to be able to lift it onto my painting table. And let me tell you already, I don't know what this weighs now, but it's heavy. It's got to be 15-20 kilos at least. It's surprisingly how quickly this gets heavy and awkward. I think I need a new wipe. You can see that what's coming off, sorry, you can see what's coming off on the wipe. I am sorely tempted on this particular model to paint the inside. I've not done that before, but I actually do think it looks quite smart. So I will be considering doing the same on the inside. When I say same, painting the inside, but like painting it like an off-white colour. But jury's out on that for now. Not going to worry too much about that. So that is that. I'm just going to let that dry, and then we can start installing all these other parts. Okay, so we're now ready to start installing. We're going to install the what's known as the first bump stop, which is the one we assembled earlier on, this one here. And if you're asking, sorry, the sandpaper grit that I use on that is a P1500, which is a really nice fine sandpaper. So we've got to just sort of feed some cap fixings through the back. These are 16mm cap fixings. I'm just going to feed through the back of the hull. 4 of these required. So just want to make sure I've got the right tool. Yes, I do. So they're presented to the outside of the hole like that, and then these, I'm just going to hold these behind, feed through into the back of the bump stop, and then we're going to get some thread lock. Just put a bit of thread locker on these. Hope that that doesn't fall off. Hold the first two and spin on an M3 nut. That's the first one on. Not tightening these up just yet. Come in from the back of that. Again, when the camera's on, there we go. Just get those on just by hand for now. It's a good job. Armortek always give you, quite generous with the spare, especially with the nuts, because they tend to fly around the workshop. Do tend to lose a few. But they're always very generous with the spares. It's just a little bit awkward. That's it. Now come in from the rear. Hold the first nut. Wind that tight into place. I think this hole where the gun goes is actually quite helpful. I was thinking or worrying about whether I need to get the option packs now, but it turns out I don't think I will need to worry too much, because I was concerned about accessing the installing the motors, because the geometry on this very similar to the Hetta, but the Hetta is a lot smaller, of course. So that's the one side done. Now we'll go on and do the first of the second bump stops. Now, just checking, I think there's a 12mm cap that goes through the back of here. There's 2 of these on either side. Now we're going to try and get another hex fixing in through that hole. Hopefully it fits, and it does. So now we can hopefully manipulate these fixings to go through. That's great. And we've got that cap fixing there. Gonna put a bit of thread locker on that. Wind on another M3 nut. I should probably just hold that and try and wind it in from behind. That's all right, that's in, but I'm not going to tighten anything up just yet. So I've got to get these hex fixings in place. So I know you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm just going to put some thread locker on the back of these. I'm going to use my Hex tool there just to hold that, so I can get the nut on the end of that. I mean, it's awkward, but all very doable. I'll do the same now to the other two flanking ones. Shouldn't have to worry too much about holding them in because they're stuck behind the rubber spacers. Just a little bit awkward because the camera's on. Okay, that's. I know you can't see this. I'm sorry. I'll be moving the camera around every couple of minutes. Right, so that's all three nuts on. Just need to tighten those up. So we'll do the cap fixings at the top first. Holding it with my hand, my finger. That's nice and tight. I'll just get my socket. Just tighten those up. Just hold that middle one with this tool here. That's it, all tight. So that's that. That's that one done. One more of these to go down this end, which I will position the camera so you can see that. And then there's a couple of other things that we just need to put on. There's a little plug to go in here, and then there's the track pin deflector that has to go on the end of that. So I'll just reposition the camera and I'll get onto those as well. So I've installed the other second bump stop, which is on here. And the only other things we're going to do now, there's a plug that needs to go in this hole here, and this is a beautifully machined steel plug that just pushes into place and glues into place. I'm guessing it's a Loctite job, yes. So let's just take that out. I'm going to use super glue on this because again there's no real loading on it. I'm just going to pop that on there, spin it to spread the glue around, put a little bit on the edge, hold that in place. That's that. And then we have this equally beautifully machined split pin deflector or track pin deflector, which goes on the back on here, and that's secured by, just double checking, 2 M3 10mm cap fixings. So they're just going to pop into that through the holes, and then they should pick that up. So let's just put a little bit of thread locker on these. I'm just checking to make sure there's no, the angle seems to be sort of identical. So now I'll position my tool at the back of that, rotate that around so I can actually see it. Just put a couple of winds on that and drop that round, and just put a couple of winds on that. Nice and tight, and that is it. I'm going to go and do exactly the same the other side. I'm not sure you're going to want to see that, but I'm going to do exactly the same this side, and then we can come back and start talking about the rest of the suspension system. Okay, we're on to the suspension now. So I've got all the parts I'm going to need. So you have 16 of these arms, these axle arms here. You have 16 of these shafts that will be these shafts pass through the hull like so, and have the other torsion bar on the end of them. And then you have 8 of each of these axles, and they're defined because there's one has got a, I'll bring these up so you can see, hopefully. So you have one has got a single groove in it, and one has got a double groove in it, because obviously this will define the position of the wheels on the hull. So just be mindful of that. And then we've got our remaining torsion bars. I've got all my grub fixings that I'm going to need and some other fixings. So what I'm going to show you here is, when I did the Tiger, I had this similar kind of problem. These axle arms are beautifully made, but because of the machining process, there's always some little imperfections. And of course, I don't know if you can see that through there, but there are some swarf that needs to be removed. And now I don't want to use any tools as such on these, and I have a technique for getting these cleaned up. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these first. This is the part that slides through the hull. I'm going to load this into my vise, tighten that up. I've got some vice guards on here which have got like designed to take round bar like that. Then I'm going to take the first one. Now this first one, this end here, not this end. This end is for the main axle arm, and you'll know that because it's the way it's designed here. And then obviously we've got the 2 grub screws which will lock in these into place once we've actually got them on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to position that on top of the threaded part, and then gently wind that through like so. That's actually gone on really nice and easy. And just get rid of all that swarf. Just unwind that. So that's in there tight. What I want to do is actually undo that so I can get some thread locker on it. Put that back in there. Wind that up. Undo that. If you try and just wind these in by hand, I think you're going to suffer or struggle, because if I just demonstrate to you, if you just take one that I haven't wound in and just try and wind that in, that's it. That's as far as it goes. Simple as that. So you will need, well, you've either got to do a clean tap through here using a whatever diameter that is, probably an M10 or something like that, tap on it, or you do my method. So now I know that that is running smoothly. Let's just make sure it is. Here's the right one. Yep. I'm going to put some thread locker on this. That's it, nice and tight. And then we're going to secure this with a little M4 6mm grub screw. Put some thread locker on this little bolt here. Get that as tight as possible in there. Yeah, that's right. So that's that. That's the first stage. Obviously, we're going to need to secure the torsion bar on here. So we'll go on now and we'll put the main axle arm onto this. and this is going to be the very first one. So it's going to be I'm just checking it's got a double ridge on it. Yes, it has got a double ridge on it. So same thing, just going to position that into my vise. This time it's this way round. Just again, just going to gently wind that into place. That's it in. I'm going to put some thread locker on that now. Again, just wind that into place. Undo the vise, and it's up tight, nice and tight. And we're going to do another grub screw just to lock that into place. Actually, I'll put the single, I've done the single one, but that's no problem. This would be number 2. So I'm going to do on that, I'm going to write, so that's an 05, the single one is 05. This is so that I prompt myself to realise that there's an 05 on there. And then I'm going to write on here 05. So I know that that goes into that slot there. Now, we need to get the torsion bar on, and then we need to set the angle, which is the tricky bit. But once I show you how to do this, you'll see how easy it actually is. One thing I do need to do is clean this arm up. So that's all the surplus gone off of that. Just want to make sure that it is in there tight, and it is tight. Now the idea is that I'm going to mask all these parts off, then I'm going to paint this, spray paint it, prime it and paint it, and then before these all go in their final position onto the hull, I'll be painting the bottom of the hull, so all of this will be ready to carry on assembling the wheels and all the rest of it. So that's one of these assembled. I'll now go and we'll start setting up ready to set the angle on the first of these swing arms. Okay, so we're now into one of the most time-consuming parts of the build, but it's a really crucial and essential part of the build. So I've now got this as a previously assembled. Let me just try and get it into the camera, this side here. There is a torsion bar, and this time around this torsion bar has only been flat-sided on one end. Here, like that. Sorry, I'm trying to do this. Just there, I don't know if you can see that. And that goes into this axle, and you've got the 2 holes here which are to secure the flat side, but you can't put the grub screws in just yet because that will not pass through there with the grub screws on. The other thing is, just take that out for a minute, as before, this end here just needs to be machined down so it slides into the hole on the other side of this. So I'm just going to use my bench grinder, excuse the noise. So that just cleans that edge up, and we'll just make sure that that goes in. Pop that through there. That now goes in there perfectly. Now what we have to do, we're going to have to flat off one end of this here once we've worked out the angle, but I can't do that just yet because we need to pass this through the hole, like so. Pull this out, flat side around. You don't want to be inserting this all the way through there. You want to be able to push this in there and then position that so the flat side's there, and I'm just going to put a grub screw in as a temporary, just to lock that into position. Now the idea is that we have to try and understand the right angle of this. So now that this is in here, we can do that, and once we've got the right angle set, we can mark this here and then flatten that off on my bench grinder, or if you've got a bench sander, you can use the same thing. So I'm now going to reposition the camera so I can show you how I get the angle set to the 30 degrees as Armortek requires. So this process means, when you think about it, this process means you have to assemble it, do not use thread locker, install it, set it, take it all apart, and then reinstall it. Sorry, set it at its angle, reinstall it, and then you can glue everything or thread lock everything as you require. So now that we've got that there, I'm now going to reposition the camera so you can see how I go around doing the angle. First things first, you need to set your angle at 30 degrees. Now this is a very old tool that my father-in-law gave me, which has been absolutely, it's been invaluable for many years. Anyway, this is now set to 30 degrees. And how do you get to 30 degrees? Well, you can use a protractor. If you haven't got one, raid your children's mathematics set from their school bag, or your grandchildren's one. You'll definitely find one if they're at school, or you can buy one off the internet. They're literally pennies to buy. Anyway, this is now set at 30 degrees, and what I don't want to do, and I've already just to demonstrate, I've done another one of these. So these are coded 4 and 5, and all the way along I've now marked along the whole 4 or 5, 4 5, 4 5, and so on, just so I can demonstrate what's going on here. Once I've got my angle set at 30 degrees, I'm now going to use some offcuts of ply. Pop those in like so. I've got my motorcycle jack, may need to be adjusted. I'm just going to pop my set against that, and you want to be setting the angle at 30 degrees. They talk about 30 degrees off the top of that, but that's absolutely fine. That is 30 degrees. I'm just going to eye that in, and I can see that I just need to adjust ever so slightly. Just drop that down. No, the other way around. Apologies. Using the motorcycle jack, I can now get this in the right position. Just going to eye that in, and I can see that that is 30 degrees. I'm happy with that. So that's that. Now, with the torsion bar in place, I'm going to mark that. I've got a line marking tool here, just going to give that a bit of a squirt through that, and that tells me the face I'm going to need to grind down, flatten off. So first things first, undo the retaining grub screw in there. Pop that away, pull that out, pull my torsion bar out, and I can see I've just marked it in green. There we can see that, and that's the face I need to flatten off to achieve to be able to lock it in at 30 degrees. So I'm going to go and do that on my bench grinder, and I'll be back. Alright, so that's the flat side machined onto this. I'm just going to pass that through into the other hole. Pass the axle through. I'm going to have to move these. Actually, no, I think I can probably get to that grub screw. Keep that. Make sure it's the right angle, right direction. Pull a couple of those out just so I can get to that grub screw. I'll make sure I'm on that flat side up on that grub screw. Lock that into place. Just that. Pass these timbers back through that way. And I can see that that's now on the right side, the flat side. So we can fix that off with a... Actually going to put a bit of thread locker on that. So I'm going to lock these torsion bars into place. Put that in nice and tight. And then we should be good. Tighten that off. Now if I move the timber away, we see that this is now locked into its position. So it's on its 30 degrees where it should be. And if we just put these back down, and as a final check, put the angle on that. I'm going to eye that through, and that is perfect, absolutely as it should be. However, I'm not going to leave this on because I want to paint this. I'm just about to get to the grub screw on that one, so I'm going to take this out. I'm going to leave the torsion bar fixed into position. Take that out, and I know that that's at its 30 degrees, perfect. So the next session I will do all of these arms. We'll finish off the suspension, but it's just far too much to do in one build session. But I wanted to go through how we set the angle. Hopefully that you found that helpful. So I'll just tidy up and I'll be back to camera to do my final piece. So that's it for today's session. I've been joined by my wonderful grandson, and I'm now going to pack everything away and go and spend some quality time with my grandkids. But today was really all about getting a little bit further down the line, putting on the bump stops, assembling them and putting them on, and then I just wanted to show you how I go about setting the angle for the main suspension arms. So in the next session we will finish off all of the suspension arms, both sides. We'll set them all to their 30 degrees, and then we'll remove them and then get everything ready for prepping and painting the side of the hull and the arms themselves. And then that way it allows me to continue further on in the build. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. If you've liked this, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, welcome, and thank you for joining me. Please subscribe, because we have got so many more videos to do on this, so much more build work to do on this incredible Jagdpanther tank destroyer. So I'll sign off by saying I'm Tony. I absolutely love building these kits, and I look forward to seeing you in my next session. See you soon.